when should and ought to mean the same idea. Ought to is formal and should is informal, and therefore it is more commonly used. But should and ought to can mean the same thing. You can interchange them. Let's look at some examples. You should exercise more. You should exercise more. Now it's more formal to say you ought to exercise more. You ought to exercise more. He should go to the store. He should go to the store. He ought to go to the store. He ought to go to the store. He ought to go to the store. And then we've got, they should stop making fun of people. They should stop making fun of people. And then they ought to stop making fun of people. They ought to stop making fun of people. Now, the interesting thing about ought to that I didn't share with you in the beginning part is that we can slide the ought to with the two T's and it would sound like oughta. He ought to go to the store. He ought to go to the store because we slide it when we talk. How about this one? You ought to exercise more. You ought to exercise more. You can hear it when people are talking. Even though ought to is more formal, we can make it sound informal by letting it slide and use that elision. All right. They ought to stop making fun of people. They ought to stop making fun of people. There's times where you'll hear it that way. All right. A way that should and ought to are equally in meaning.